welcome to another episode here for the Funky Pod Mindful Media and Communication. And, well, guess what we're talking about today? As if there's anything else to talk about. Yes, exactly. We talk about the German government falling apart. No, I'm kidding. We're not talking about Germany. We're talking about Trump, of course. We're talking about Trump. However, I did want to mention that back in my home country of Germany, we also have political news because we thought, hey, we can't leave all the headlines to Trump. So our government decided to end the coalition and call for a vote of confidence in January, though, so that we can also grab some headlines. But of course, all the big headlines are all about DJT being back. Don't call it a comeback because it feels like he's been there for like a decade. Yay. But we're not, not here to hate. We're not here to throw personal opinion in there. We're here to look at like how did he manage it? How did the Democrats not manage to win? So we look a little bit into like Trump's communication approach this time around. We look a little bit about like potential impact. And then maybe we look at what we can learn from that, and all that within the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. So let's jump right into it. And for once, or one thing I can clearly state is, luckily it's over. My feet, I'm not even American. I don't live in America. I've just been to South America, which is completely different and was so nice, chill, relax, until you start to think about politics, of course. But I'm glad it's not in my feet anymore. Okay, I'm glad. Thank you, America. See you in 4 years. So, that said, of course, the land of the free has a huge impact on all the other lands of the free, simply by it being so big and important when it comes to the media landscape. So we gotta look at it and maybe we can take some learnings from it, right? So, let me look at a little bit about into if Trump can talk, why should I be able to talk? Maybe that's how I get more viewers. So we look into his communication strategy, how he kind of like leveraged the language of the average people, his strategic media engagements here and there, and how this all played together to propel him to victory. Okay, we also look into like what I said earlier, into like potential impact. AI, social media, tech, and so on. And then also look at like how different world leaders reacted, because there's of course also a strategy to it. Okay, so let's jump into the first segment that I wanted to talk about, Trump's communication strategies and how he actually managed to speak the language of the people. Yeah, and I mean, even the first time around, right? So his strategy has always been like I want to call it kind of like an enigma, actually, like an enigma, like wrapped in simplicity, if you will, right? Because he tries to keep it as simple as possible. Unlike many other politicians who opt for like super carefully curated speeches, then loaded with policy jargon and so on, Trump speaks in a way that feels relatable to millions of Americans. And it's not just a fluke, right? That's intentional strategy rooted in media theory. Yeah, we understand that. So one of the theories that is one of our go-to theories when we analyze stuff, the use and gratification theory. And in this case, it can shed light on why this approach of Trump works so effectively. People don't just passively receive media, they actively seek content that fulfills their specific needs, be that information, entertainment, a sense of connection, whatever that might be. And Trump's like unfiltered conversational tone taps directly into that need for relatable and straightforward communication. And so his speeches are peppered with colloquialisms, everyday language, and that makes his message resonate with people who would feel delusioned by traditional political talk. And this, combined with his strategic use of digital media channels, played a huge role. Gone are the days when like politicians relied solely on news broadcasts and print media, for example. Trump's campaign was omnipresent in the podcast world, and the biggest of all, of course, being in Joe Rogan, like the week before the elections, right? So, but he went on a Joe Rogan podcast, he went on the Theo Von podcast, he went on the Flagrant podcast, and on what you name it, right? All the trending podcast with all the famous comedians, he went on there. While Kamala Harris, not so much. And I know she went on Call Her Daddy, which is a very niche kind of thing. And then she went on like Breakfast Club, I believe, and so on. The thing is, though, those are all programs that are important, but that cater to a very specific niche that maybe she already had covered, right? It's the niche of like women, and sorry for calling it niche, but you know what I mean, like a segment, okay? I don't mean niche, sorry. Don't hold this word against me. It was a segment for women, and then the black voters, which she probably kinda already had. I'm not an American, so maybe I'm wrong, but I just would assume that that's her home base, kinda, right? And I mean, if Charlemagne endorses her the whole time, then I would simply assume that's where she has a stronghold on. Now, if she would have gone on Joe Rogan, it would have exposed her to more people, more of a, I was about to say wider, I mean wider, not whiter, wider audience. I'm sorry. Pardon me. Okay, so I just think it was very smart of Trump or his team, probably his kids, realizing that, hey, Dad, don't care about CNN and so on anymore. Go on Joe Rogan, you reach you reach more people with CO1 or even Flagrant. But Flagrant is getting really bad, but you reach more people there than you would do it with like 10 appearances on CNN, for example. Yeah. And that was very, very smart. So his omnipresence in the podcast world and leveraging like influencers, because I mean Rogan, Schultz, and so on, they are kind of influencers in the world, and they amplified his voice. And this approach, right, favorite media scholar incoming, reflects Marsh McLuhan's "the medium is the message" theory. We talked about this many a times. So the way Trump communicated through trending platforms and podcasts was as significant as what he said. Yeah, the Channel Joes, they position him as like this modern, accessible leader. They're bypassing traditional media and connecting directly with audiences, right? Kamala Harris is mostly, I know like the few podcasts, but mostly she's been on, I noticed she's done TikTok, but she's been mostly on like the relying on the traditional news channels, news coverage, while Trump was like, I don't care, I'm gonna do all the podcasts because that's where my audience is. Right? So know your audience, also another very important thing to consider. So if you consider his appearance on Joe Rogan, on Theo One, on Flagrant, where he spoke just like very candidly about policies while like, weaving in stories and talks. I mean, he explained on Joe Rogan, how he dodges questions. And I call it the weave. So, you ask me something, then I go like on a tangent all around, and then I'm coming back to the point I'm gonna hit you. No one else can do it. No one else. And I'm not a Trump fan. I think from what I see, he's a terrible person. But you have to say the strategic approach to finding the right outlets, the right channels, and connecting with audiences worked. Okay, it just worked. So, yeah, it was very strategic positioning, smart, and by making himself appear like approachable, he blurred like the lines between celebrity and political figure, like a tactic that proved crucial for engagement and mobilization in this case. And it's funny that it works because, of course, he's this billionaire, millionaire, who really knows, that messed up so many things, that has so many scammy-looking businesses, and yet he finds a way to connect to the average American. I mean, either he's very good at all of that, and yeah, of course, him and his communication team are good, or the other candidate is really, 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 really bad. And maybe there should be more than two candidates. Just saying. I mean, I'm from the old world, so what do I know about democracy? Now, in wake of his success, right, like an immediate aftershock was the cryptocurrency markets, and I hope you all own Bitcoin. They went through the roof, all-time highs for Bitcoin 2 days in a row. The Bitcoin and other cryptos, they surged like never before. I sound like Trump, like never before. And that's a signal that investors anticipate more favorable climate under Trump, right? Because he has more of a deregulatory stance, and I mean, he has his own crypto tokens, which is ridiculous. But I mean, that's impacting that, of course. And so that if you wonder like why did this happen so suddenly, well, because agenda setting theories here, right? The media coverage played a very critical role in shaping, in this case, investor sentiment. And that's not just big investors, it's also small investors like you or me if you own some crypto, right? As financial outlets like picked up on Trump's like historical support for deregulation, pro-business policies, and so on, the narrative kind of like shaped. Like crypto is like back on the table. If Trump wins, that's good for crypto, is what people in the space were saying, right? So investors, of course, responded not just to what is happening, but to how it's being presented, if that makes sense. And if you dig a little bit deeper, to what this means for the future of crypto, like there are lots of analysts that argue that short-term gains are promising, of course. Long-term implications are probably a little bit less clear, right? Because of course there's deregulation on the table, which could lead to like faster expansion and innovation, but it could also introduce like more vulnerabilities, scams, world financial, what's it called? I mean, Trump has his own scam again, allegedly. God, don't sue me. World Freedom Coin or whatever that's called. If there's a lack of oversight, it's easy to scam, of course, right? And this could also lead to financial bubbles. And here, now why I mentioned this in this podcast is where media theories come into play. And media theories and behavioral finance even like kind of like are combined here, because people are influenced not just by the information they receive, but by how it's framed and emphasized. Yeah, so if crypto, for example, you follow crypto news and they're like, hey, it's great news for us, Trump is back, so it means deregulation and more open markets, and so then you're like, oh yeah, cool, let's buy more crypto, and it's to the moon. Dogecoin, all-time high as well, right? Crazy. But on the other hand, what I just mentioned, potential for scams and the like too, right? It's easier to lose your money as well. So if you're looking ahead, this search right now indicates a new chapter for in blockchain technology as a whole. Who knows? Will it become more mainstream with less regulatory oversight, or will it spiral into like some uncharted, potentially risky territories? That who knows, right? Those are questions that if you are an investor, investors, technologists, policymakers, maybe even have to grapple with in the next few years, I think. Well, but I mean, he's running on the platform of like deregulation, more open, which is also kind of funny because a few years ago he's like Bitcoin is a scam, and now it's like, hey, crypto is great because he has his own. Funny how our opinions change, right? But this will then also come down, of course, to agenda setting and framing. How will different outlets frame what he's doing in that space, and how will this framing then influence the audience? Important here is, of course, don't lose your critical thinking skills, no matter which side you're on, no matter who you support. Always make informed decisions, right? Okay, don't just blindly buy Bitcoin or like other crypto now just because it's trending upwards right now. As you know, you should buy when it's down anyways. So make informed decisions, think critically, and if you really want to invest in Trump coins, then know what you're in for, of course. And in relation to this, we can talk a little bit about tech too, right? Because Trump's administration is also expected to implement like a more of a hands-off approach to, for example, AI development and tech regulation as a whole. This means social media companies, for example, Meta, like Zuck was very complimentary to Donald Trump for his win, which was surprising, looking into like the woke stance that Meta had for a long time. So, but it means like social media companies, tech giants, they could see a boost in innovation because if there are less barriers, less regulations, right? Question similar to the crypto question is this a net positive in the end though? If you look at another theory that we mentioned before, the diffusion of innovation theory, for example, it becomes clear that deregulation could, of course, accelerate the adoption of new technologies, also new AI technologies, for example, right? That's why also Sam Altman congratulated Trump right away. So early adopters, tech giants, they could seize this opportunity to develop, hopefully, cutting-edge applications from smarter social media algorithms to more advanced AI-driven journalism tools, if you want to, for example, right? But this freedom, of course, also, just similar to the Bitcoin part, comes with potential and now you know my favorite topic, ethical dilemmas. Now, fewer checks in place. How do we ensure that technology is used responsibly? Do we even care? If all we care for is economic growth, do we care about ethics? America, you tell me. And so the balance between rapid development and responsible innovation becomes pretty crucial. And so, question, will social media platforms take this opportunity to implement more sophisticated, possibly intrusive algorithms that enhance engagement? Or will they use it to build tools to really prioritize user well-being? More engagement or user well-being? What do you think Meta, TikTok, and the like are gonna do? Exactly. So, the tech world right now, of course, is watching super closely. Industry leaders Elon was with Trump on the table, right? They have hinted at like a new era for innovation, all those congratulatory tweets afterwards. We're looking forward to it, looking forward to collaborating. Let's get this done, let's boost innovation and so on. While critics also warn what I said just right now, less oversight could lead to abuse similar to, remember Cambridge Analytica? Yeah, right? Apparently no one else does remember either. Duh. Did we learn our lessons? Let's see. Let's see if we did. One of the last things I would want to mention on today's episode is then how the global reactions came in, right? Because of course the global stage was alight with reactions right after the election, right? So of course we had Bibi chiming in. He was like among the first to congratulate Trump. He's like, it's a historical comeback. Yeah, surprise. Okay, no personal opinion. Wusa. Of course he does that. Every message has an agenda, right? Of course, Netanyahu's message is like, okay, we know that the US is close to us, and of course the Trump administration is even closer to us than the other administration possibly was. So we wanted to continue to be pro-Israel, pro-Netanyahu. And I heard Dave Smith today talk about something interesting, and I don't want to make it a political podcast, of course, but he's like, you can be pro-Israel, but you don't have to be pro-Netanyahu, which was an interesting thing to say, but again, not a political podcast here. The message from Netanyahu, of course, agenda-ridden, laden, I want to say, not ridden, laden, of course. On the other hand, we had also European leaders expressing concerns over potential strains on international diplomacy. However, all of them, of course, congratulated and said, we want to continue working together. So that's all, of course, agenda setting as well. Yeah. And the variety in responses can be analyzed through, of course, again, framing theory, agenda setting, and so on, like how leader or media outlet presents Trump's win depends heavily on their political and cultural context. So Russian media, for example, aligned with state interests, framed that win as a potential shift back to more realist policies, beneficial for those bilateral negotiations. Putin came out the American people have spoken, congratulations, we're looking forward to working together again, for example. Chinese media was congratulations, please support the American people, looking forward to it. So they're all very positive about it because, of course, they had struggles with the previous with the current administration. Now they're hoping that things are going to get easier, better with the next administration, of course. So again, framing in full effect, right? Putin's response, for example, was he's always measured but very positive, which is very interesting, right? So he's signaling readiness for a new dialogue and the like. So this kind of framing reinforces Russia's portrayal of Trump as that pragmatic partner, maybe, while European headlines were warning of a shift away from multilateralism, for example. They all frame it as something difficult happened, and of course it tries to shape public perception in regards to policies that might be affected and the like, right? So there's different ways to frame events. We talked about framing many a times, happening right now as we speak. So then the question, of course, is where does this all leave us, right? We're this inflection point, and I don't mean it because of Trump. I just mean, generally speaking, because of the media landscape, elections are always inflection points where media, communication, and technology are more intertwined than ever, right? And Trump's win is like more than just a political event. That's a case study, from my point of view, in like modern communication strategy, media influence, and also the evolving tech landscape. And whether it's the bullish crypto market, AI is uncertain, yet looking like more innovation being allowed future, or the strategic narratives being crafted by world leaders that we just discussed at the end. All those developments definitely demand our attention in the chain. And while I don't have a horse in the race, because I'm not American, I don't live in America, and I think it affects all of us. And it's just also very interesting to see that in this two-party system, again, try not to make it a political podcast. I will come to the communication part in a second. But it's communication, because you always have in-groups and out-groups, right? So either it's my team is winning or my team is losing. If you're not on my team, you're against my team, right? And this, we are all against each other. And now that Team A kind of won, I'm not sure if Team B is taking the right lessons from it. This Team B now looking and saying, okay, this is where we should have done better. Maybe our candidate didn't really reflect, or her campaign on like happiness, let's all be happy together, didn't really work in a time where people are not happy. Maybe her focus on certain audiences didn't really work. Maybe we should have been more open. Are they learning something from it? Are they taking something away from it? Or will they just blame Team A? Just because you were on Joe Rogan, that's why you won, for example, right? So that's something interesting that we have to wait and see. And we also have to wait and see how those teams now, of course, work together. Will they work together? Can they work together? Can they communicate together? Because as we've seen, and now I bring it back to the intro and then I'm finished, as we've seen in Germany, even if there's a government working together, in Germany we had like three parties in the government, right? We had like I almost said like lefties, but apologies. We had the SPD, which is like central left. We had the Green Party, which is of course mostly more left, and then the Liberals, the more business-friendly party. And the more business-friendly party had the Minister of Finance, and he just annoyed the Chancellor that much by now with what he said, what he did, and he released a book and stuff, so that they didn't see any other chance but to actually like kind of fire him. And now that's why the vote of confidence is going to happen in January. So I'm saying this, understanding that you're not too much into German politics, and this is not a politics podcast, but showing that even if you're working together in a coalition, in this case, communication is very difficult. Even though you agree, like, we're gonna rule together, and still the communication can break down. Okay, communication is very, very difficult. So now there are two parties that don't like each other, but in theory you should work together for the better of the people. Will they be able to do that? That's gonna be something very interesting to see. My prediction is, stay tuned for the next video. No, next video is next podcast will not be an election podcast, promise. And I hope I don't have to talk about Trump, Harris, or anybody else from that realm in the next episode. All right, but do let me know what you think. What do you think? Not about political views, because again, not a politics podcast, but do you think Trump's election now will have an impact on AI, crypto, tech, social media, all those things? Do you think I exaggerated his potential impact? Let me know your thoughts. Shout out in the comments, leave a review, that always helps. Like, share, subscribe, and well, yeah, relax. It's over. 4 years of hopefully less political stress. Next week without politics. Until then, stay safe, take care. I'll see you then. Sawadee khap.